My sister Carol had always been the golden child. It wasn't even a subtle thing. It was as blatant as the nose on your face. From the moment we were born, she seemed to soak up all the attention, all the praise, leaving me, Sarah, to quietly exist in her shadow. Carol was beautiful, effortlessly charming, and apparently, according to our parents, destined for greatness. I, on the other hand, was just there, the reliable one. The one who got good grades without much fanfare. The one who never caused any trouble. In short, the forgettable one. Growing up, this dynamic was just a fact of life. I didn't know any different. Carol got the lead roles in school plays, the scholarships, the fancy car for her 16th birthday. I got hand-me-downs and a pat on the head for being so understanding. It stung, sure, especially during those moments when I actually excelled at something, only to have my achievement glossed over in favor of whatever Carol was currently up to. But I told myself it didn't matter. I was happy for her, I really was. Or at least, that's what I kept repeating until the lie felt almost true. Our grandmother, Nana Rose, was the one person who seemed to see me. She had a quiet strength about her, a gentle wisdom that always made me feel heard and valued. Nana Rose wasn't flashy like Carol. She was the steady, comforting presence in our family, and she had this beautiful antique locket, a delicate silver piece engraved with intricate floral patterns. It was her most prized possession, a family heirloom passed down through generations. I remember being a little girl, sitting on her lap, tracing the cool metal with my fingers as she told me stories about our ancestors. That locket always held a special kind of magic for me. Nana Rose passed away a few years ago, leaving a void in our family that no one could quite fill. In her will, she had stipulated that the locket should go to the first granddaughter who got married. At the time, Carol was already engaged to a wealthy doctor, Mark, while I was happily single, focusing on my career as a librarian. It seemed obvious who the locket would go to. And honestly, I didn't mind. It was a beautiful piece, and Carol would cherish it, I was sure. The wedding was a lavish affair. Everything you'd expect from Carol. She looked stunning in her designer gown. Mark was suitably handsome and successful, and our parents beamed with pride. As the ceremony drew to a close, our aunt, Nana Rose's daughter, presented Carol with the locket. Carol gasped, her eyes wide with delight, and immediately clasped it around her neck. It looked perfect on her, sparkling against the lace of her dress. I smiled, genuinely happy for her, and then the reception began. Everything was going smoothly until I overheard a conversation between Carol and one of her bridesmaids, Jessica. They were standing near the buffet table, giggling and whispering. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but Carol's voice carried easily over the music. "Can you believe Nana left this to me?" Carol said, twirling the locket between her fingers. "I mean, Sarah would have just put it in a drawer somewhere. It's wasted on people like her." Jessica laughed. "Totally! You're the one who appreciates beautiful things, Carol. It was meant to be yours." Those words hit me like a punch to the gut. Wasted on people like her? What did that even mean? Was I so insignificant in my own family's eyes that even a cherished heirloom would be wasted on me? The casual cruelty in Carol's tone, the dismissive way she spoke about me, it all chipped away at the carefully constructed wall I'd built around my feelings over the years. Later that evening, as the reception was winding down, I found myself alone for a moment, staring out at the manicured gardens. A wave of sadness washed over me, a deep ache that went beyond just the locket. It was about all the times I'd been overlooked, all the subtle and not-so-subtle ways my family had made me feel like I was less than. Suddenly, Carol appeared beside me, a smug look on her face. She must have noticed my quiet demeanor. "Something wrong, Sarah?" she asked, her voice dripping with false concern. "No, everything's fine," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Really? You seem a little down," she pressed, her eyes flicking to where the locket rested on her chest. "Don't tell me you're jealous of Nana's locket." She actually laughed, a short, sharp sound that grated on my nerves. "Honestly, Sarah, it's just a family heirloom. Get over it." That was it. That was the breaking point. Years of feeling like the invisible woman, of swallowing my hurt and pretending everything was okay, it all came crashing down in that moment. Her dismissive tone, the casual cruelty, the sheer audacity of her assumption that I was just jealous. It was too much. A strange calm settled over me. The years of resentment and unspoken hurt coalesced into a single clear thought. I was done. Done being the background character in my own life. Done letting my family dictate my worth. "You know what, Carol?" I said, my voice surprisingly even. "You're right, it is just a family heirloom, and you can have it." She looked surprised, a flicker of confusion in her eyes. "Well, of course I have it. Nana left it to me." "No," I clarified, my gaze fixed on the locket. "You can have it. Keep it. Cherish it. Because as of right now, you can have the whole damn family, too." Carol's jaw dropped. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about being done," I said, taking a step back. "Done with the constant comparisons. Done with feeling like I'm never good enough. Done with being the afterthought. You and Mom and Dad, you've created this dynamic, and frankly, I'm tired of playing my assigned role." "Sarah, don't be ridiculous," she scoffed, but there was a hint of unease in her voice now. "You're just upset about the locket." "It's not just the locket, Carol," I said, shaking my head. "It's everything. It's the years of feeling invisible. It's the constant reminder that in this family, I will always come second. Well, not anymore." I turned and walked away, leaving Carol standing there, speechless. It felt liberating. A weight had lifted off my shoulders, a weight I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying for so long. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. My parents called, of course, their voices a mixture of concern and annoyance. "What's gotten into you, Sarah?" my mother demanded over the phone. "You can't just say things like that to your sister. It's her wedding, and the locket was Nana's wish." "Nana also wished for her granddaughters to be happy and treated with respect," I retorted, my voice firm. "Something you all seem to have forgotten when it comes to me." My father chimed in, his tone stern. "Don't be dramatic, Sarah. Carol didn't mean anything by it. You're just being too sensitive." Too sensitive. That was always their go-to explanation for my feelings. But this time their words didn't sting as much. I was starting to realize that their perception of me was their problem, not mine. I kept my distance, politely declining invitations to family dinners and get-togethers. Carol tried to reach out a few times, mostly with guilt-tripping messages about how I was hurting Mom and Dad. But I stood my ground. I needed space, time to figure out who I was outside the confines of my family's expectations. One afternoon, a few months after the wedding, I received a package in the mail. It was from Carol. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was the silver locket. My heart skipped a beat. Had she finally understood? Was this an apology? I carefully lifted the locket from the box. It felt cool and familiar in my hand. Attached to the chain was a small note. "Sarah, Mom, and Dad are really upset. This whole thing is getting out of hand. Just take the locket. Maybe it will make you feel better. Can we please just go back to normal?" Carol normal. That's what she wanted. For me to go back to being the quiet, agreeable sister who never rocked the boat. The locket wasn't an olive branch. It was a bribe. A way to smooth things over and get me to fall back into my old role. A wave of disappointment washed over me. Carol hadn't understood at all. This wasn't about the locket. It was about years of feeling invisible. Giving me the locket now didn't erase all that. I closed the box and put it aside. A few days later, I received another message from Carol, this time a screenshot of an Instagram post. It was a picture of her wearing the locket, beaming at the camera, with the caption, "Love my beautiful Nana's heirloom. So lucky to have such a special piece of family history." The casual insensitivity of it took my breath away. She wasn't just flaunting the locket. She was flaunting her place in the family, her perceived superiority. It was a deliberate jab, a way of reminding me that I was the one on the outside. That's when I knew for sure that things couldn't go back to normal. Not for me, anyway. I deserved more than to be an afterthought, a supporting character in someone else's story. I deserved to be the main character in my own life. I made a decision. I couldn't keep living in the shadow of my family's expectations. I needed to create my own path, build my own life, surrounded by people who truly saw and valued me for who I was. It wouldn't be easy, but I knew it was the right thing to do. The first step was to create some distance. I decided to take a solo trip, something I'd always wanted to do but never felt like I could, given my family's tendency to guilt-trip me about not being around. I booked a flight to Europe, a continent I'd always dreamed of exploring. The idea of wandering through ancient cities, soaking up different cultures, and just being me without the weight of family expectations was incredibly appealing. As the date of my trip approached, my parents' calls became more frequent, their tone shifting from annoyance to concern. "Are you sure about this, Sarah?" my mother asked, her voice laced with worry. "Going all the way to Europe by yourself? It's not safe." "Mom, I'm a grown woman," I replied patiently. "I can take care of myself. And honestly, I need this. I need some time to myself." "But what about us?" she asked, her voice taking on a familiar whiny tone. "Don't you care about your family?" "Of course I care about my family," I said, trying to keep the frustration out of my voice. "But I also need to care about myself. And right now, that means taking some space." The day I left for my trip, Carol sent me a terse text message. "Hope you have fun. Don't expect us to be here when you get back." It was her way of trying to make me feel guilty, but honestly, it just solidified my decision. If my taking some time for myself meant that my family would disown me, then maybe that was for the best. Europe was everything I had hoped for and more. I wandered through the charming streets of Paris, explored the ancient ruins of Rome, and marveled at the breathtaking landscapes of Switzerland. For the first time in a long time, I felt truly free. I made new friends, tried new things, and discovered a part of myself that I hadn't even known existed. During my travels, I often thought about my family. There were moments when I missed them, especially the memories of Nana Rose. But then I would remember Carol's dismissive words, my parents' constant favoritism, and the heavy weight of their expectations, and I would realize that I was exactly where I needed to be. I started to see things more clearly, to understand the patterns of behavior that had defined my relationship with my family for so long. I had always tried so hard to please them, to be the good daughter, the reliable sister, hoping that one day I would finally earn their approval. But I was starting to realize that their approval wasn't something I could earn. It was something they freely gave to Carol and consistently withheld from me. As my trip drew to a close, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in years. I was no longer defined by my family's expectations. I was Sarah, the librarian who loved to travel, who had a passion for books and a growing sense of self-worth. When I returned home, I didn't rush to see my family. I needed more time, more space to process everything. A few weeks later, my mother called, her voice surprisingly subdued. "Sarah, can we talk?" she asked. I hesitated for a moment, then agreed to meet her for coffee. When I saw her, I was struck by how tired she looked. The usual spark in her eyes was dimmed, and there were lines of worry etched around her mouth. "How was your trip?" she asked, her tone almost hesitant. "It was good, Mom," I replied honestly. "Really good. I needed it." There was a long silence, broken only by the clinking of coffee cups. Finally, my mother spoke again. "Carol's having some trouble." "Oh?" I said, trying to sound neutral. "Yes, her marriage, it's not going so well." I waited for her to elaborate, but she just sighed and looked down at her hands. "Mark, he's not who we thought he was." I felt a pang of sympathy for Carol, despite everything. Marriage was hard, and no one deserved to be unhappy. But a part of me couldn't help but wonder if this was karma, the universe's way of balancing the scales. "I'm sorry to hear that, Mom," I said sincerely. "She's been staying with us," my mother continued. "It's difficult. She's not handling it well." I nodded, not sure what to say. "And, well, she mentioned something about the locket," my mother said, her gaze finally meeting mine. She said, she feels bad about what she said at the wedding. A small part of me wanted to dismiss it, to say it was too little, too late. But another part of me, the part that still longed for some kind of connection with my family, felt a flicker of hope. What exactly did she say? I asked. My mother hesitated, then repeated Carol's words from the note. She said she feels bad about what she said and she wants you to have the locket. This time it felt different. Maybe it was the vulnerability in my mother's voice, or the fact that Carol was going through a difficult time herself, but something shifted within me. Okay, Mom, I said slowly. Tell her I'll think about it. As I left the coffee shop that day, I carried the weight of that conversation with me. Part of me was wary, afraid of falling back into the old patterns. But another part of me wondered if maybe, just maybe, this was a chance for things to change. Maybe Carol had finally realized the impact of her words. Maybe my family was finally starting to see me, not just as the reliable one, the forgettable one, but as Sarah, a person with her own feelings and needs. I still had a long way to go, and I knew that rebuilding trust wouldn't happen overnight. But for the first time in a long time, I felt a glimmer of hope. The heirloom, the locket that had been the catalyst for so much pain, might just become a symbol of a new beginning. The following weeks were a delicate dance. Carol remained at our parents' house, and my mother acted as a cautious go-between. She'd relay snippets of information about Carol's struggles, her voice laced with a mixture of concern and a subtle expectation that I would somehow fix things. I listened, offering words of sympathy, but I didn't rush in. I needed to see genuine change, not just a temporary truce born out of necessity. Then came the call. It was late one evening, and my phone buzzed with Carol's name. I hesitated for a moment before answering. Sarah? Her voice was shaky, thin, not the confident, sometimes arrogant tone I was used to. Hi, Carol, I said cautiously. There was a long pause, and I could hear her take a shaky breath. Mom said you might be willing to talk. I am, I replied, keeping my tone neutral. Can we meet? She asked. I thought about it for a moment. Meeting in person felt like a big step, one I wasn't sure I was ready for. But a part of me knew that if there was to be any real reconciliation, it had to happen face to face. Okay, I said. How about tomorrow afternoon? We could meet at that little coffee shop downtown. Okay, she whispered. Thank you, Sarah. The next day, I arrived at the coffee shop a few minutes early. I chose a table in a quiet corner and waited, my heart pounding slightly. When Carol walked in, I was surprised by how different she looked. The vibrant energy that usually surrounded her was gone, replaced by a weariness that aged her. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and she looked like she hadn't slept well in days. The locket was nowhere in sight. She spotted me and walked over to the table, her movements hesitant. We exchanged awkward greetings and then sat in silence for a moment, the weight of our unspoken history hanging between us. Finally, Carol spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Thank you for meeting me, Sarah. Of course, I said. She looked down at her hands, twisting them nervously in her lap. I wanted to apologize. I waited, not prompting her, letting her find her own words. What I said at the wedding. It was awful, she continued, her voice thick with emotion. You've always been so good to me, and I was just being cruel and jealous. Jealous? That surprised me. Carol had always seemed so confident, so sure of her place in the family. Jealous of what? I asked gently. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with tears. Of you. Of how grounded you are. You always seemed to know who you were, what you wanted. Me. I've always chased after things, trying to fill this empty space inside me. Mark, he wasn't the person I thought he was. He was more interested in my family's money and connections than in me. And now he's gone. Her voice broke, and she reached for a tissue in her purse. I watched her, a wave of empathy washing over me. Despite everything, she was still my sister, and seeing her in so much pain was difficult. "I'm sorry, Carol," I said softly. She nodded, wiping her eyes. "And about Nana's locket, I was wrong. It shouldn't have been about who got married first. It should have gone to someone who truly appreciated its history, its meaning. Someone like you." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small velvet pouch. She opened it and carefully took out the silver locket. It gleamed in the soft light of the coffee shop. "I want you to have it, Sarah," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "It always meant more to you than it ever did to me." I looked at the locket, then at Carol. Her eyes were filled with genuine remorse. This wasn't just about appeasing our parents. This felt real. "Carol," I began, unsure of what to say. "Please, Sarah," she interrupted. "Take it. It belongs with you." I reached out and gently took the locket from her hand. The cool metal felt familiar against my skin. I opened it, revealing 2 tiny faded photographs inside. One of Nana Rose as a young woman, and another of our great-grandmother. "Thank you, Carol," I said, my voice thick with emotion. We sat in silence for a few more minutes, the tension between us slowly easing. It wasn't a magical fix, and years of hurt couldn't be erased in a single conversation, but it felt like a start, a genuine start. Over the next few months, Carol and I started to rebuild our relationship, slowly and tentatively. She moved back home for a while, and we spent some evenings just talking, really talking, for the first time in years. I learned about her insecurities, her struggles to live up to the expectations our parents had placed on her. She, in turn, started to see me not just as the quiet sister in the background, but as a person with her own strengths and vulnerabilities. My relationship with my parents also started to shift. They saw how much Carol was hurting, and for the first time they seemed to realize that their constant favoritism had taken a toll on both of us. They started making more of an effort to connect with me, to ask about my life, my interests. It wasn't perfect, and old habits died hard, but there was a noticeable change. One afternoon, about a year after my trip to Europe, I was at my apartment when I received a text message from my mother. "Sarah, can you come over for dinner tonight? We have something we want to talk to you about." I hesitated for a moment. Family dinners had always been a source of anxiety for me, but given the progress we'd made, I decided to go. When I arrived, Carol was already there, and the atmosphere felt surprisingly relaxed. We ate dinner, chatting about our lives, and for the first time, it felt like a normal family meal. After dinner, my father cleared his throat. "Sarah, your mother and I have been doing a lot of thinking." I braced myself, unsure of what was coming. "We realize that we haven't always been fair to you," he continued, his voice a little gruff but sincere. We got caught up in Carol's successes, and we didn't always acknowledge your achievements or your feelings. We're sorry, Sarah." My mother reached out and took my hand. "We love you, honey. We always have. We didn't always show it in the right way." Tears welled up in my eyes. It wasn't a dramatic, tearful apology, but it felt genuine. It felt like they had finally seen me. "Thank you," I managed to say, my voice choked with emotion. Carol smiled at me, a genuine, heartfelt smile. "Yeah, Sarah, you're the best sister a person could ask for. We've been idiots." We spent the rest of the evening talking, sharing stories and memories. It wasn't a complete erasure of the past, but it felt like a new chapter. A chapter where I was finally seen, finally valued for who I was. Life isn't a fairy tale, and our family still has its moments. But things are different now. Carol and I have become closer than we've ever been. We talk regularly, support each other through thick and thin. My parents still have their moments of unconscious bias, but they are trying, and that's what matters. As for Nana Rose's locket, I wear it often. It's a reminder of my grandmother's love, but it's also a symbol of my journey. A journey of finding my voice, setting boundaries, and ultimately, finding my place, not just within my family, but within my own life. It reminds me that even when you feel invisible, your worth is not determined by how others see you. It's about knowing your own value and having the courage to walk away from situations that diminish it.